This is the Nations Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. We've had a lot take place on the world stage over the last couple of days, including Operation Midnight Hammer, where the United States hit Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. And since then, we've seen a lot of different things occur, which is all likely leading to a major false flag occurring on U.S. soil. If you look at all the narratives that are out there, from the alt-right media to Donald Trump to America sticking their nose in between the supposed conflict between Iran and Israel, and I say supposed because, again, this is about civilian lives. This is about wiping out territories, wiping out regions, taking the lives of innocent people. This is not about a conflict between Israel's military and Iran's military. This is obviously all playing out exactly how Albert Pike's blueprint on World War III said that it would, including the involvement of other countries, including the division that it's causing here in America, even dividing Republicans over everything that's going on. And that's all being done by design, because the more you divide the people into more subdivisions, more pro-Israel conservatives versus pro-Palestine conservatives, the more you have the people divided, the better it is for them. So before we get into Operation Midnight Hammer and we get into the ceasefire and all the other stuff that's going on the world stage revolving around Israel and Iran, while everybody's looking up at these light shows that are going on in the sky, you might notice that it's almost starting to look like a fireworks show, where we just see missiles going up and then missiles exploding in the sky. You would think that this wouldn't be an actual plan of war if you know that the missiles are going to get intercepted and you're going to spend all that money on missiles, then you're going to send them up in the sky just for somebody else to intercept it, and everybody gets to see the light show taking place. But what most people didn't see while they were looking up was the fact that Iran got hit with 3 significant earthquakes over the last couple of days, over the last week or so. And we obviously know of the military's use of weather modification, and that includes Nikola Tesla's earthquake machine. So we saw tremors taking place over in Iran, and the only discussions that take place were, hey, were they testing nuclear bombs? Because there was an earthquake that hit of a 5.1 magnitude in Iran. So I'm sure that was a coincidence as well, that we saw earthquakes taking place. We see no mention of weather modification, controlling and manipulating the weather as a force multiplier by 2025. We don't hear anything about it at all, but we're told that there's nuclear testing going on. So that's what was going on during the actual Operation Midnight Hammer. And then from there, we had Donald Trump announce the ceasefire and putting an end to what they're calling the 12-day war. And if you're paying attention, they just announced that it was the 12-day war, the ceasefire for the 12-day war. And 12 days from that announcement is actually the 4th of July, which could be very significant for a false flag on U.S. soil. But let's take a look at Donald Trump posting these social media tweets out to True Social, to Twitter, because it's amazing that the mindset of regular people is they think that all this is real. They don't think that it's a psychological operation on them. They don't realize that the internet itself is a government weapon. It is a tool that the government uses, not just to gauge what people are thinking about, what people are talking about, if people are picking up on false flags or psyops, not just for censorship, but also to psychologically manipulate you into believing the things that are happening on a world stage are actually naturally occurring instead of being scripted out. So Donald Trump tweets out as if Iran is sitting on True Social reading about the ceasefire, or as if Donald Trump is somehow the negotiator. He's somehow the guidance counselor between Israel and Iran, even though the United States supposedly interfered in this. So why would Iran actually listen to the U.S.? What they're doing here is they're trying to convince you that Donald Trump has backed off because they saw there was a lot of negative feedback from MAGA about going after Iran. And when they see that, they know that they have to create a false flag to get everybody on board with going to war with Iran and joining side by side with Israel. So Trump tweets this out. Congratulations to everyone. I mean, this is a president of the United States of America who is on a social media platform tweeting this out. I mean, this is how these psychological wars work. That people read this stuff, they don't think that it's weird that the president is writing out his ceasefire message for the world to see on his Truth Social account as if Iran is it's incredible. So congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. So here they are obviously trying to gain the trust back of the conservatives who were not on board with going to war, because a lot of them aren't on board, because all we heard before Donald Trump was put into power was how Donald Trump was going to end all these conflicts with Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Iran, and how the Democrats, all they wanted was actually war, right? Then we go and we butt our nose into something that really America has no business being in. But if you actually understand the origins of America and the origins between America and Israel, you know that an attack on Israel is an attack on America. But Trump goes on to say officially Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end of the 12-day war will be saluted by the world during each ceasefire. The other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, the courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. He goes on to tweet again, the ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And then, of course, what happens 5 seconds later? Israel accuses Iran of violating Trump's ceasefire, right? And then, of course, you get this interview with Donald Trump this morning, where he even drops an F-bomb talking about how both sides, Israel and Iran, have violated the ceasefire.
It says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
So from there, obviously, what we can expect to see is a false flag on U.S. soil. They want and need people to accept the United States of America getting involved in this war between Israel and Iran. And they need Donald Trump to be able to brush his hands clean and say, look, we called for a ceasefire. We agreed to a ceasefire. And then conveniently, the U.S. will pull a false flag on their own soil and, of course, blame it on Iran. So the other thing that we're seeing here they have to pay attention to is how the pro-Trump media is split over this conflict. You have clear agents of Israel, clear operatives like Tucker Carlson, who are pretending to be anti-Israel. This is all being done strategically by design. This is, again, going to bring in more censorship, more of the ADL. You could see Tucker Carlson, they're calling it the new country club anti-Semitism. Tucker Carlson went on the air and did an interview with Ted Cruz, and they were bickering back and forth. And you could see how Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz's biblical bickering explains the divide in MAGA on Israel. Goes on to say, debating Israel and Iran, Carlson and Cruz got hung up on a verse from Genesis. Who read it right? But how come none of these people read the book of Revelation? Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Maybe one of the most important verses in the Bible. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because we never hear anybody in the mainstream ever bring up that verse. And obviously that's because they're not allowed to bring up that verse. We don't hear any 501c3 churches bring up that verse because it would make somebody say, wait a minute. It specifically says in the Bible, a book that I'm supposed to take literally, that there's people who are of the synagogue of Satan, but say that they're one thing and they're not. And then you say, well, what does that mean? And you say, well, let's look deeper. Let's look at Walter Rothschild in the Balfour Declaration. Let's look at Arthur James Balfour and Mr. Rothschild establishing in Palestine the national home for the Jewish people, which is the national home for Zionism, which is now a military-industrial complex, or how Israel became a state in 1948. 1948, not that long ago, they became a state. And who was the first person to officially recognize Israel as legitimate? Of course, it was Harry Truman. And for those of you that don't know, Harry Truman, although I hold the highest civil honor in the world, I've always regarded my rank and title as a past Grand Master of Masons, the greatest honor that I've ever had come to me. And Harry Truman, in that quote, should have been found guilty of treason. Harry Truman, Freemason, Freemasonry connected to what? The Kabbalah. Their teachings are one and the same. So then we could go back to Tucker Carlson and we could say, well, Tucker Carlson is going on the air and he's getting yelled at as a shill for Iran. And you have the conservatives now divided, but of course siding with Israel because they're not understanding scripture properly. And then you say to yourself, well, Tucker Carlson's always wearing that red bracelet on his wrist. He's always wearing it. Here he is even pointing up to his head. This is an illustration of Duncan's Masonic ritual and monitoring the sign of a Mark Master Mason. And he was always wearing this bracelet up until recently because they didn't expect you to notice that he was wearing a bracelet. They didn't expect you to understand the connection between the Kabbalah and secret societies like Freemasonry. Then you get Candace Owens, who's the other alt-right media clown out there who is pretending to be anti-Israel as well. And you say, well, these people are millionaires. They come from such rich backgrounds. You have Candace Owens hanging out side by side with Kanye West. Remember when Candace Owens was doing the White Lives Matters movement to suck in white conservative men into following her on large platforms like YouTube? Because remember, the alt-right media intercepted the Real Truth movement. The alt-right media took over for all the big channels out there that were exposing the left and right paradigm. These people still lure people into thinking that their vote actually counts. These are the people that keep you sucked into the left-right paradigm, who don't expose it for what it truly is. They will tickle your ears with some truth because they have to. But by design, they're obviously there to mislead you. And right now, that's what they're doing. They're causing more division among conservatives and Christians. But that'll all change once a false flag is committed on U.S. soil. And that's what they're waiting for, which brings me to, again, to the National Blueprint for Biodefense, which I covered a few weeks ago. Remember, they always have these scripted events where they carry them out, they act them out. This is from the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense, like Event 201, or like the Boston bombing, or these false flags that take place at schools who happen to be running drills on the same exact day. In this scenario, they talk about an attack, a bio attack on July the 4th. And I wouldn't be surprised if they even attempt another fake assassination on Trump so he can garner more support, because it feels like Trump has been losing some of the momentum he's had from the assassination attempt back in the summer of 2024 because of some of the stuff going on, right? There's been so many things that people are starting to raise their eyes to, like AI governance or the Golden Dome, Skynet that Donald Trump is trying to bring in, the surveillance state. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have some type of event. They probably wouldn't air it on TV with Donald Trump because of how fake the other assassination attempt looked, right? So we saw the first one, and then the second attempt that occurred, they didn't bother to show us anything, even though they could have easily shown us, you know, as we always see in these false flags now, somebody standing by with a cell phone filming, and that's likely to occur on a golf course because we always see footage of Trump playing golf. Somebody's filming him on a cell phone. But conveniently, of course, we didn't get any footage from that because the first one was so poorly acted out that they probably were like, look, there's a lot of people out there that are making content or showing images of Trump slapping his ear. Trump didn't even have a wound on his ear. And they just carried on and moved away from the false flag because they made it a left-right thing. So the conservatives refused to actually question if it was true or not. They were just so fired up because they're stuck in the left-right paradigm. So if we have an Iran attack on U.S. soil, there's also the chance that there could be some type of an announcement that they tried to go after the White House and they tried to go after Donald Trump just to gain more support behind him. But make no mistake about it, whether it's July 4th or it's a different day, the whole point of Operation Midnight Hammer was to give an excuse for the United States to commit a false flag on themselves. And that's what happens. That's what people need to understand. Anything that happens on U.S. soil will be by your own government working with Mossad. So any attack on a building, anything in a city that actually occurs that you might feel emotionally sucked into like you did on the 11th day of September, pull yourself out and realize your government did it to its own people so that they could psychologically get everybody on board with the U.S. going into a war with Iran. And if there is a false flag on U.S. soil, you could expect it to be as big as the 11th day of September, because some of the false flags they've done recently have not done what they've expected it to do. Some of these false flags where we see the person yelling "Free Palestine," a lot of people call out how fake some of this stuff is, but you see if buildings go down or you see something along those lines in the future, like they did obviously many times in the 90s. We saw many bombings occur. Obviously the Oklahoma City bombing, which was a government operation. We saw the horror that was Waco. And we obviously saw the 11th day of September, just to mention a few. So expect something in the future. That's the whole point of Operation Midnight Hammer. They need to get you on board with what they're going to do. Remember how many people were on board after the 11th day of September? How many people were sucked into that, thinking that the narrative that they fed us about hijackers and Osama bin Laden, who was long dead before it even occurred. Think about all the narratives and how we all got sucked in immediately, right? And then, of course, a lot of people naturally woke up at that time, especially after finding out about the Patriot Act and finding out about those guys dancing on top of the rooftop. You know, the same people who are responsible for all of the world wars, the same people who are obviously involved in all conflicts that occur. And they're going to bring America into this. And they need to get the citizens in America on board. And they're seeing a lot of the conservatives, a lot of MAGA, who are not fully supporting what they're seeing going on. A lot of them are scratching their head. They're going, why would we bomb Iran? Why would we get involved with Iran? And then they watch online and they see everything everyone's saying. They say, okay, we got 70% of the population that are not on board with this. Then we have 30% of Christians who are on board because whatever we tell them, they will automatically side with Israel. We got to get more people on board. And how do you do that? You attack yourself and you blame it on the person that you want to be viewed as the enemy. So expect that in the future. I'm not saying it's going to occur on July the 4th, but I think it's pretty coincidental that 12 days from Trump announcing the end of the 12-day war, that it is actually the 4th of July. And how many movies have we seen predictive programming with the 4th of July, from Independence Day to other films where we see terror threats occurring on Independence Day? It would be pretty apropos, as they say. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.